Now, among the 7 astronauts killed was New York native Lieutenant Colonel Michael Anderson. The 43-year-old Anderson was born in Plattsburgh. The community there is planning a memorial this morning to honor him.
And joining us now is Dr. Edward Belbruno from Princeton University. He's also CEO of Innovative Orbital Design and a consultant to NASA and Boeing. Let's begin by talking about that debris that was seen on January 16th. Yes. If it was seen from 20 miles away, obviously a large piece that could have inflicted a significant amount of damage.
Yeah, that point has not been brought out. When they photographed the shuttle taking off, it's going thousands of feet per second. It's a very high velocity, and it's like a bullet, really. And if you can see a piece falling off at that distance away with cameras, it's a large piece, because the shuttle itself is a very large machine. It's several, 100 feet long. So the piece itself was not something small. It was large. And if you're falling off a moving bullet and something quite large hits a fragile tile, that's really a problem.
Edward, most of us around here have been talking about this. Could there have been a contingency plan? Could something have been put in place to prevent this?
Not to prevent that accident, but once they reached orbit, it was said that they had no choice but to deal with the problem, and they had to come back. But one possibility that wasn't mentioned, and I really don't know if this is feasible or not, was perhaps of maybe going to the space station. And in the future, that might be something recommended, or at least studied by NASA, if they haven't already, is to use that to sort of inspect the shuttle and use it for an inspection facility. And if there is a real problem, the astronauts get off and stay there until they can get rescued.
Or until they can fix the problem itself.
Exactly. But then again, going to the space station might be difficult. So I don't even know that's feasible, but it seemed to be something worth studying, I believe.
With regards to the problem seen from that debris falling into the left wing of the plane, now we're getting, somewhat of a conversation that could have caused enough of the tiles to fall off. Explain why the tiles are so important to the insulation of the plane, of the aircraft.
Well, when the shuttle is coming back into the atmosphere from space, it heats up to 2,000 to 3,000 degrees, and that's incredibly hot. And all that's protecting the shuttle skin, which is very thin aluminum, is a tile which is only a couple inches thick. It's not very thick at all, but it's
What's it made of?
Well, it's a very porous kind of material. I'm not an expert with the tile itself, but I've seen them demonstrate. It's very porous material, and they're quite fragile, really. And I've seen demonstrations where someone's taken a blowtorch and had the tile red hot, and the person's hand is on the other side, and they feel nothing. It really protects it. Right. So a downside of these tiles is that they are relatively fragile, but they do protect the heating of taking place on the shuttle skin. Of course, if a tile was not there, and you have 2,000 to 3,000 degrees of this intense temperature, plus the speed of going 20 times the speed of sound, that would have the effect of magnifying the heating and maybe ripping off other tiles.
Even more tiles. Even
more tiles. And then it's a chain reaction. It goes out of control. At those kinds of speeds and pressures, it just ricochets, and the shuttle will just break apart.
Especially because the inner shell is aluminum, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's quite thin because they want to save as much weight as possible. So you don't have a very thick aluminum skin, and 2,000 degrees will get through that very quickly.
All right, Dr. Belbruno, thank you for coming in this morning. More continuing coverage on the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster.
All right, thank you very much, Michelle. Joining us this morning is Dr. Edward Belbruno of Princeton University. He is a consultant to NASA and CEO of Innovative Concept Design. Good morning. We thank you very much for joining us to talk about this obviously very somber subject. You're quite familiar with the space shuttles. Your gut told you the morning that this happened that it was what?
Well, the first moment I saw the problem on the computer, my gut reaction was it was a tile problem.
But there have been tile problems in the past, and those shuttles have come back and have landed quite safely.
Yeah, from the onset of the shuttle program, there's always been an issue with the tiles. When they first started launching the shuttles back in the 80s, it would come back and tiles were missing, or they would be badly damaged and they repaired. And they've always been problematic because, number one, they're very delicate, and there's thousands of them on the shuttle because they have to custom put them on to fit all the design of the shuttle itself. So I think from history, because shuttles have never had a problem coming back before in the atmosphere, and they know they've had problems with the tiles, it's never been a concern.
So what does that do now to future shuttle flights? I mean, they're all in limbo right now, but if and when they decide we can put a shuttle back up, are those tiles going to be there?
Yeah, they're going to be there, and I think it depends on the investigation, because if it turns out that the tiles had an issue because of material falling off from the central part here at the very beginning, then that's one story which is easily fixed. You just make sure that the stuff doesn't fall off. But if it turns out it's a structural problem with the tiles themselves due to age or whatever, then the repairs could be quite lengthy.
Okay, you just mentioned age. The shuttle fleet is quite old, especially when you consider modern technology and what's happened in the last 20+ years since those shuttles were created.
Right.
There's a lot of talk now that maybe some of the money that had been going towards the